The Maw and Disorder mini set has breathed new life into the Paladin class, which leaves us really with just one question. What is the best Paladin deck? In my personal opinion, I believe it's this list right here. If you want a copy of this list, you'll be able to find the deck code in the comments. I promise not to forget this time. And really, what it comes down to is Order in the Court, the Maw and Disorder card, has been able to give Paladin a way to be able to guaranteed draw the top end of the deck. So we look at the top end of this deck. Of course, we're running Sire. You're going to notice there's no Jailer here. I know there's a Jailer version of the deck. In my opinion, the deck is a meme deck. I had zero success with Jailer Paladin. By zero success, I mean, well, one win, but out of quite a few games. It just wasn't working for me because it felt like the deck folded to early pressure, and this deck doesn't really have that problem. So we play Order in the Court, hopefully around turn 4 or turn 5, and then we're going to be guaranteed to be able to bring down Cariel on turn 8. Cariel, in a lot of cases, is going to close out the game because it keeps it safe. We're only taking half damage thanks to the Cariel weapon. And then we're also going to have Sire Denathrius in hand early in the game to be able to start pumping him up and be able to get his infuse as big as possible. In the early game, we're really just looking for cards to be able to play, so we would keep our 1-drops. Really, any of these 1-drops are going to be fine. Battle Vicar, you know, not going to be great on turn 2, but it is something on turn 2. I suppose you could keep that. Also, of course, Seafloor Savior, Alliance Bannerman. And then I would likely also potentially keep like a Muckborn Servant, or even and especially Cariel Roam. So early game, we want cards just to be able to play, get on the board, fight for the board, make sure that we don't take too much damage because we don't want to set ourselves up to lose before Cariel comes down. Then hopefully we're able to get down Cariel on turn 8. We're going to be getting down free or cheap light rays. In addition to that, we're going to be able to heal with Sire Denathrius, and the deck just kind of goes from there. So this deck, really the goal is to make ourselves unkillable for our opponents. We outlast any kind of damage source that they have while we're chipping away at our opponent's health total. And then of course this deck is also running a Mr. Smites, which is going to give us a win condition from hand. Certainly with the Cariel hero power, we can potentially land buffs on Smite and do, you know, 10, 14 damage fairly consistently from hand with this card. So we have multiple finishers with Smite, as well as the Sire Denathrius in hand. I'm done talking about the deck. Let's get in and see how it plays. So it looks like we're going to be up against Warlock here. I'm assuming that this is going to be just the very popular Imp Curse Warlock. I'm actually thinking that I want to keep this curve. This just gives us plays on each turn. Not necessarily ideal plays, but I think in this matchup there's a lot to be said for just having minions on the board to be able to trade for those 1/1 imps that could potentially be coming down. We would always keep Knight of Anointment anyway, and I'm pretty sure that we would want to keep Muckborn Servant, at least in most matchups. The real question here would be whether or not to keep Battle Vicar, and I'm just keeping it specifically because of what I'm assuming is going to be an Imp Warlock matchup. Righteous Defense is actually a good pickup for us if they're able to buff an Imp with a location, or buff a Flustered Librarian. Then we're going to be able to steal its stats and hopefully get a good trade. Not really a whole lot of choice here. We'll get the Vicar down. Turn 3, I mean, we've got choices. Now we're going to take the Consecration here, and we're going to punch face. So there's still a question as to whether or not this is pure Imp or Curse Warlock. We should be able to find that out here in the next few turns. I'm going to assume it's Curses, just because that seems to be the more popular deck on the ladder, at least at the ranks that I'm playing at. And then next turn we have options based on what our opponent does. We have 3 different turn 3 cards. Each one of these cards creates a different decision branch. So which one of these cards we play on turn 3 is actually going to have a significant effect on the outcome of the game. And seeing the Voidwalker come down leads me to believe that we are actually playing against the pure Imp version. The problem here is if they're going to be able to draw cards with an impending catastrophe, but we can't do anything about it this turn. Next turn we'll be able to deal a lot of damage with the Consecration. So I think what we're going to do here, we're going to play the Bannerman, specifically because it's going to give 1 extra power to Blademaster Samuro. It's going to enable us to be able to clear extra stuff. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And we hit a Rustrot Viper. I think I'm actually not going to trade this 1/1. Potentially we can bait our opponent into making a bad trade, but there's no reason to push into this if we're planning on consecrating next turn anyway. If they don't trade for the 1/1, then we'll be able to consecrate, and these 2 guys can trade into the 3 health minions. And our opponent actually does make a trade here, so that's good news for us. Pretty much hoping that, oh yeah, this is going to be really good for us. So we'll be able to clear their entire board except for one flustered librarian. It's just going to be really, really strong for us here. So we've made some wise choices with the paths that we've taken this game. And we'll be able to contest this next turn as well. We removed the imps from the board. That means the impending catastrophe isn't going to be able to draw a lot of cards. That's really good for us. And really the only thing that we're going to be worried about now is going to be Rafam, bringing these cards back. Could actually consider a Samuro here just to clear this. It's going to make location is going to be bad. It's going to make impending catastrophe bad to limit our opponent's card draw. So we can actually just go Samuro, and we'll play the 3/2 sous chef here. I don't see any reason to necessarily save this Samuro. And we're going to bump into, of course, one of the one-attack minions, keep our Samuro as healthy as possible, and then get our 3/2 down as well. So things going really good this game. We've been able to control what our opponent's doing. We know what their game plan is because we know what deck they're playing. The only thing that we're really, really concerned about here is going to be Rafam and whether or not we could deal with that big board. And it actually is the curse version of the deck, which is interesting. We have unfortunately taken a lot of damage here. And we're going to want to remove this. Might even actually look for some healing here, which we're not going to get. This is unfortunate. We're going to take this. I'm going to make these trades, and then I'm actually going to... Oh, we're going to trade the Viper. Spammy Arcanist. And then we're going to put Divine Shield on our 3/2, so if they play Abyssal Wave, it's going to leave us with 2 3-attack minions on the board. That's going to be the best that we can do. Unfortunately, at this point, we're expecting the curse damage to add up pretty quickly. Our opponent is going to be able to remove boards with the Abyssal Waves. They're actually not doing a whole lot of anything here. So that's good news for us. We have City Tax. I don't think we actually need it, though. Let's see, we have 8 damage on board. We want to take a trade here. We've got Mr. Smite for next turn, so we actually want to try to set up lethal. So we're just going to play out as much as we can. We know they have a free Grimoire of Sacrifice in hand. Mr. Smite, unfortunately, is only going to be 6 power, but hopefully they're not able to clear everything that we have on the board. And, you know, potentially we have lethal set up for next turn. Abyssal Wave isn't going to be enough. It's going to leave us a 5/1 on the board. There's no way that they're going to be able to deal 20 damage this turn. They've only played 1 curse so far, so we're feeling safe as far as the next turn goes. Ideally, if we're unable to kill them, we would want to top deck Lightforge Cariel. And that's going to be our best draw really for the rest of the game, just because it's going to make us so much safer and just give us so much more effective health total because of the way it halves damage. So they need to be able to remove the 5/3. I'm sorry, I misspoke. We actually just kill him here, but I misspoke on the damage that they had. Grimoire of Sacrifice only dealing 2 damage. So we're going to go ahead and get in there and finish our opponent. Just unable to answer our board, and we were actually able to beat an Imp Warlock on tempo with this deck. So our next opponent here is Shaman. Now the interesting thing here is I'm going to attempt to make a meta read. I could be totally wrong about this, and this may be incorrect, but I can't tell you the last time I played against a Shaman. I think I want to keep the City Tax in hopes that I would draw an equality, because I'm thinking that this is most likely a rogue, and if it is, if they create those big stealth minions, equality City Tax might actually just win the game. And then specifically with the hand that I have available, I've got a turn 1, and then I could potentially coin out one of the 3-cost minions for turn 2, and then play the other one on turn 3. So I'm going to keep the City Tax here. Kind of a meta read. Again, this may not be correct. but it's the chance that I'm going to take this game. And we're going to find out if I'm smart or not. And so it is not a 30-card rogue. Could still potentially be rogue, though. We've got the 40-card rogues running around with jackpots. Still not necessarily shaman. We're going to wait and find out what our opponent actually is. I'm still expecting rogue more so than shaman, and I'm 100% incorrect. That is unfortunate. So we could actually go coin Bannerman into Bannerman to be able to buff all the minions in our deck by 2. That's actually going to feel pretty strong. We do know that they're likely going to be running Primordial Wave, which is going to remove our minions, but it just feels so strong. The question is, do we need to keep the coin for anything else? And I really don't think so. I feel like this is going to be strong enough that we're able to just do it. We hit a Sylvanas there. So we could potentially trade away the city tax now as well. It's not going to have necessarily as much value. Could save it. We might need it at some point just to be able to clear a really wide board full of Murlocs that we would expect our opponent to be able to make at some point. Now we have significantly bigger minions. So we're going to take a value trade here, and then this guy goes face. We would never want to trade the 2-2 into the 2-3. There's no reason to do that. They're going to be able to take a value trade, so we would rather just put the damage into our opponent's face here. If we get to Cariel, it feels like we should be able to win this matchup, I think. Seafloor Savior. I'll go ahead and trade the city tax, and then play the 4-6. Ring of Courage is interesting. I'm going to take the Ring of Courage. It's cheap, it's tradable, and we're expecting at some point that our opponent's going to have a very, very wide board, because Control Shaman, of course, likes to play wide Murloc boards at some point during the game. Or the Piranha. So we're going to be able to get a big buff for only 2 mana here. Even this turn, it's just... it feels like it could be potentially really good. So we're going to Ring of Courage, and we're going to be able to make something really, really big here. And I think we want to remove probably the 4 mana minion, just because of, you know, we're a little bit afraid of the Evolve, I guess. So with the rest of our mana, let's play another Muckborn Servant. And I'm going to take the Leviathan here. The ability to dredge is going to be really good. So we'll make this trade, and then we're going to Ring of Courage here. And we're going to make this trade. So in this matchup, I just want to stay safe. We know that they might have a Primordial Wave, which should evolve their side of the board, devolve our side of the board. So we're going to take value trades that we maybe wouldn't take in other matchups, because again, if we stay safe and get to Cariel, I really don't think our opponent is going to have enough damage to be able to finish this off. And they're going to evolve this. And of course they hit a Denathrius. This would have healed all of the damage that we did last turn anyway. So unfortunately here, we don't have a way to be able to remove the Denathrius, and I really don't like the idea of taking that 10 damage, so I'm probably just going to have to Sylvanas to kill this and get it off the board. It's not ideal, it's not the worst thing in the world. Ideally, I would like to be able to steal it. That's not going to happen, but at least we do have an answer for it. So we're going to get that out of the way. We do have an equality in hand. You know, drawing a city tax or Blade Master Samuro is going to give us a nice little board sweep, which we may need at some point. And it looks like they're going to be potentially double trading here. We've got the Leviathan next turn. And they are trading, so we're going to be able to remove the bigger threats. And it looks like we're also going to be able to start infusing a Famished Fool here, so we're going to go ahead and get this guy down. And I like to draw first, just because it gives us more information about what we have in our hand and what we might want to dredge off the bottom. So we're going to draw a card first with this guy. And then we'll dredge. And Lightforged Cariel is just a snap pick there. We're still at 36 health. Next turn, we're going to be able to get down the Cariel. And Cariel is going to remove quite a bit off the board here between the AoE and the weapon. And we should be good to go, really, in the rest of the game from there. Again, our opponent likely not going to have the damage to be able to kill us. And potentially we can dredge again. Maybe for a light ray, just because we're going to be able to play those for free. Which is potentially really strong. And our opponent actually shuffling their entire hand, so we know they don't have good plays. So shuffling so many cards into their deck and then drawing again, this is likely going to mean that they do have good plays for the following turn. But none of this is going to change our play. We're just getting the Cariel down. And swing into Firemancer. Still some shenanigans possible from the other side if they can hit like Mutinous and then repeat that battle cry effect multiple times. But overall we should be okay here. Again, likely we're going to be using our hero power, and they're going to get an evolve. That's always a little bit scary. And they turn a null into a null. Don't mind that at all. And Brucon is actually really good for them on their side of the board. And they are really wide now, so we can potentially just look for something from a Battle Vicar here, like in the form of an equality to be able to remove this board, or I'm sorry, a city tax or a consecration. Are we going to have enough mana to use this? I think so. And we're going to get the 5/7 in play. If this gets devolved, it's going to be really small. That's unfortunate. Each mana you've spent on holy spells. We spent almost nothing on holy spells. I guess we'll take the secret here. And we'll just go ahead and discover again. And we're going to take the consecration, so we know we're going to have an equality consecration clear if we need it. And we can go ahead and dredge again here. And I think I'm going to take the spammy Arcanist because we may be able to set up a board clear. And we're going to get our free guy in play, and then we'll just go ahead and get this down too. And going to pass turn, no reason to really swing into this. We would just be taking an extra damage really for no reason whatsoever. Our opponent likely going to be summoning additional 2/3s, so we know we'll be able to swing into a 2/3 to make it 1, and then potentially set up a nice spammy Arcanist turn. We're also going to have Famished Fool just to be able to draw cards, which feels like it could be pretty good here as well. Could be really strong if we can get a board clear with spammy Arcanist, and then be able to drop down an infused Famished Fool to be able to draw cards as well. We'll also actually be able to create a 1 health minion because of the sous chef, if it's not removed from the board. So a bit unfortunate there. And they hit Denathrius for the second time in the game. I wonder what the chances are of that. So we're likely going to have to equality consecrate just to remove the board, and then that's going to limit what else we can do this turn. But we are going to be able to clear the board, which is good news for us. So there's a 1, 2, 3, but unfortunately we can't get the spammy Arcanist all the way up to a 10. So we can go hero power, and then we'll be able to go equality consecration and then play a Seafloor Savior here. And we buff the Famished Fool. Unfortunately, we are unable to use that this turn. The consecration down. And I may actually hold on to these 1/1s just because they're good food for Mutinous. And I'm going to take the Okani here, just for a little bit of disruption of our own. So our opponent is ahead of us in terms of fatigue. They're going to die before we do to fatigue. Unfortunately, that may be a factor in this game. Fuse Devourer is a little bit unfortunate. So we can draw cards and then actually just play the Reckoning. Hit a City Tax, and we hit a Denathrius, which is going to be good for us. We can start infusing our Denathrius. So we can play the Reckoning in case they go face, but it's more likely that they're going to trade for our 7/9 or attempt to address the 7/9 in some way. We landed a buff on the Okani. Still one equality in the deck. Question is, do I want to trade the City Tax? And I think I do. So Order in the Court would give us Light Ray immediately, which would be a free 5/5 that we could play, and then we would hit Varian into Theatar. So at this point, I'm not sure that we necessarily want these cheaper cards in our deck, although the equality could be a little bit attractive based on what our opponent does. And they're going to be getting a lot of Mutinous. And unfortunately, they hit all of our big cards. Man, you really, really hate to see that. You really hate to see that. They hit Leviathan, and they hit Mr. Smite. So our damage from hand is gone here. At this point, I think we're just going to see what we can steal. And we're going to take their Denathrius, and we're going to give them a 1/1. And we're going to want to play this Denathrius next turn. The one that's infused for 21. I would like to kill that, but I don't like what I have to do. To be able to do it, I would need to trade, and play the spammy Arcanist. The chance that they have Battle Cries to be able to take advantage of it, I mean, they could have their own Theatar. It feels like it's too dangerous. I have to do it. I don't like it, but I feel like I have to do it. And then next turn again, we're just going to go ahead and jam down this Denathrius. We want to make sure that we don't allow our opponent the opportunity to be able to Theatar it. We're going to go ahead and take the healing and get the big 10/10 on board. So we can actually kill the Trog first, and then get down the big Denathrius, and our opponent's actually running out of stuff, which is good news for us. We'll get the big boy on the board. So this survives, which is unfortunate, but it's not terrible. And it looks like the Denathrius is actually going to die. That's going to be fine. We've been able to heal to full health, and I think we actually just play this next Denathrius. We're going to force our opponent to have another answer for a big minion, and they actually just give up here. So we don't want to hold on to these too long, give our opponent a chance to steal them. We want to give them a threat to have to deal with. So actually, I think a well-played game from our standpoint. And just a quick note here, you know, if your opponent gets something favorable, like their Mutinous eats your Leviathan and your Mr. Smite, it doesn't mean the game is over. Yes, it's frustrating, but it's worth it to play the game out, because you might actually be throwing away wins if you concede too early. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Uncorrupt. Good luck out on the ladder.